Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Crystal. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown on location, 9 o'clock Meltdown podcast. I should say I have to differentiate things these days. I am at just CF Design here in Duluth, Minnesota. Sitting across from me is Robert Adams. Hello, sir.
Hello.
I've interviewed you once before, some years ago, back when I was still at the radio station, and I remember we talked about your artwork, your paintings, and then we really dove into creating zines and things like that back in the East Coast where you hail from. And once again, we're in a wonderful studio here, CF Design, here in Duluth, Minnesota. And your paintings are gracing the walls everywhere I look. And they're very avant-garde. I mean, the one I'm looking at right now is the top is a submarine and the bottom half is a shark.
Right. Mm-hmm. I like to mix things up. I feel like, well, we're kind of living in a very mixed-up age and bombarded with all kinds of stimulation and imagery, and that's reflected in my artwork. I think mine are kind of snapshots of like maybe 1 second of brain space where like all these different thoughts or images might be passing through my mind, and I kind of take a snapshot. But there's actually more that goes into it than that. I take a lot of planning, but that's what I aim for in a final result, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And now, I do apologize. We had tried to do this interview before on a weeknight, and it turns out weeknights just don't work for either of us. But we've been chatting a little bit about these art pieces, and they're very... I mean, as I look around, it looks like there's a lot of Korean influences, a lot of kind of Japan influences. But then I look over behind me, and there's some Soviet Union influences. Where did all of this kind of come about? I mean, one image over there has like a tank with some stars, and like the other one has a Reese's wrapper.
Well, like you said, I'm from the East Coast originally, and I grew up near D.C., and my dad worked for the Defense Department for his whole career, so he studied the Soviets and had all kinds of information at home about the communist threat and images of their propaganda and books about how strong their military was and how they were going to destroy us and all this. So it kind of infiltrated my mind at a young age. So I've kind of been fascinated by military history and politics and international relations. So, I think about all these conflict zones around the world, whether it's Korea or Eastern Europe, the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And those have found their way into a lot of my works. I heard it once said about Andy Warhol that he worked out his fears through his, kind of like excising the demons through his artwork.
Okay.
It's like the Death and Destruction series that he did with plane crashes and electrocutions and Kennedy assassination and stuff like that. So
Gotcha.
Maybe that's mine as well.
Self-expression. I love it. So last time I was in here and I saw your work, you had been talking about going to school and, getting your bachelor's degree, but then like moving on to graduate. And in graduate college, they just basically told you, go. There was no real kind of structure, is what I recall from the conversation.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing. I felt like, well, in a way, grad school was kind of, getting an MFA was kind of an artistic boot camp in the sense that you're thrown into the trenches and have all this information coming at you of art historical theory and criticism and cultural critique and all these different disciplines and how they interact with cultural history and so forth. And in the meantime, trying to teach classes and do my own work. But it's a really creative time, and because I had started as an outsider artist, I was inspired by all the folk artists that I used to see at the Smithsonian, and then I worked for the Maryland Conservation Corps. I was pulling trash out of streams around D.C., and I thought, these kind of food wrappers are kind of interesting. I don't usually buy them, so I didn't really pay attention. So rusty pieces of all kinds of junk thrown into the rivers. you started using them for collages. So I started doing art and collage and assemblage on my own, and then after I'd gotten shows for a number of years, I had enough of a body of work to be accepted into grad school, and then that's where I kind of fleshed out more of the theoretical basis behind what I was doing and how that fit into contemporary art practice, and so yeah, it's been a different route. So.
Interesting. So what did you actually go to school for, bachelor's wise?
Biology. Yeah, kind of general biology. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into environmental science or, create genetic monsters or what. I guess luckily I didn't choose that field.
Yeah. Godzilla.
Right.
The creator of Godzilla sitting in front of me. So is that kind of where you get some of your more kind of landscapey? I mean, looking around, you've got these absolute beautiful and stunning like images of the mountains and the sea, and like I said, there's a shark underneath, a submarine in one of them. So is that kind of where you get the environmental imagery from? Is your time being a biologist?
I think it's connected to that because I studied biology because I've loved nature and fascinated. I mean, humans fascinate me because we're so creative and with science and can create such amazing innovations, but also nature. If you ever watch, Sir David Attenborough or other nature programs, it's just amazing what world we were given or inherited. So I like to merge those two fascinations in my works and look at nature versus technology, the natural versus the man-made world, and interactions between them. I think they both have promise, or they're both beautiful, and they're both have harrowing moments. Nature isn't all perfect. There's great white sharks and parasites and meteor strikes and stuff like that. So.
Wood ticks.
Definitely wood ticks, yeah.
Wood ticks don't serve a purpose.
I think they feed, some kind of birds eat wood ticks, don't they?
Oh, yes, they do. Okay, all right. So they now serve a purpose in later years. Exactly, because Robert Adams said so.
Oh,
And now let's touch into kind of the artwork. You said that you were, picking up trash and things like that during your pre-graduate school years, and you started to incorporate that into your collage and your art. Now, was that just any type of trash? Was it something that caught your eye that, you picked up from? I mean, what kind of garbage are we talking about?
Oh. Well, yes, I guess I'm a little selective in my garbage habits, but I like the idea that you can make art with whatever is around you, so I try to be open-minded about what I could use or what people can use. I'm fascinated by stories of, say, prisoners who all they have is maybe toilet paper and their own blood, and they can make beautiful things out of that. But I like the garish. The museums I went to growing up at the Smithsonian, a lot of pop art and contemporary, art since the 50s and 60s. So I like bright colors. I think I've seen some parallels between marketing and how it tries to catch your eye and especially lure the unsuspecting, like children, with bright colors and fancy lettering and stuff. In a similar way of propaganda, political or nationalistic, like simplified, like follow this leader and you'll live a happy life. Eat this candy and you won't be hungry for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So I try to merge those two lines of thought in some of my pieces.
Yeah. I mean, that, well, as we have skateboarders skating by us here.
Yeah,
Holy cow, that's a caravan. 8? Wait.
It's quieting down.
Is there going to be 9? Nope. Just 8 skateboarders.
That's
All right.
awesome.
Hey, that's new. I usually expect there to be two, if we can take a quick little side tangent here. I usually expect there to be two skateboarders, but no, that was 8 skateboarders.
Right, and that's not a very wide
Right in a row.
sidewalk with a giant trench on the other side. So
Yes, yes. So,
pretty daring.
so we're sitting in CF Design here. I'm right across the way from Robert Adams. His artwork is displayed on the walls here. And they have decided to rip up the road. So there is a giant mud pit, probably about 3 feet away from us. And it's all blocked off. And so that's what we have to deal with today. But anyway, I digress. Back to the subject at hand. So you tried to marry kind of that propaganda and things together with the bright colors. And when you said, the bright colors for candy and kids and buy our product, I immediately thought of the 90s and how many different commercials there were for like one candy bar during that time.
Has that died down? I haven't watched too much TV.
I don't watch television anymore, so it's died down in my life,
Right.
but no, it hasn't died down. With some of your art, I mean, there's one that I know we talked about last time we were in, and it's very propaganda-ish, I think. It reminds me a lot of the kind of Soviet Union a bit, and I know it doesn't have to do with the Soviet Union. I'm talking about the one in the corner that's bright and pink and purple and green, and it's got the star and this, what else do they have?
That looks like upside
Bombs
down
and maybe?
letters.
Yes.
Right.
So where did that one come about?
I think, so these influences of mine, I think we all see things through a certain lens of our experience. And for me, with that political history aspect, that was for a show at a restaurant in Seattle. They have different themes, and it was for a Northern Italian theme. So that's, I call it Venice on the Volga, because it's images from Italy and from Venice, but somehow I made it come out looking like it's on the Volga River in Russia, because it has upside down letters. They're red, white, and green. Those are the Italian national colors. It's from a Paradiso tomato container, which we used to use when I worked at a pizza shop. And the pause for a minute.
Yep, of course. There's a knock at the door, so. And then he also has some smaller works that are remnant of Duluth, Minnesota, and kind of the industrial side of things. I was, as you were off helping the neighbor, I was just doing a quick introduction of your work. And now you also have the smaller paintings as well here that are remnant of the industrial side of Duluth and Superior.
Right. Yeah, this is kind of a retrospective of work that about 20 years or so. And in the smaller room coming in, there's a number of pieces, collages and paintings that were from my Insight show at Red Herring in 2016, and that was site-specific images of labor history events in the Duluth Superior area. And then there's another series up there of images, color-enhanced photos of the Superior sewage treatment plant, which was for a show at Prove, and I call it Vowel Movement. I came up with that somehow after brainstorming. The name of the show was a group show called Slow Motion, and but that turned out kind of fun. It's it looks at this infrastructure that's aging and rusting and patched together over a century and still holding together and still keeps the water churning in Superior for the time being. It's interesting. I was talking to a city councilman who was at the opening here and about that piece, and he's like, "Yeah, I was touring a Duluth pumping facility that it looks in pretty similar shape. It's got like this old rusting equipment from 100 years ago or something that we're going to have to do something about." So it's just part of my whole fascination with how does human civilizations function and how do they fall and how do we maintain them. There's going to be this bill coming due for replacing all of this infrastructure and stuff that we kind of take for granted. It's the flip side of technology is you got to maintain it, which isn't as glorious as coming up with innovative new things, maybe.
Right, right. And that's why the street outside is ripped up and there's a giant mud pit 3 feet from us. Definitely. And so now, in your valve movement images, did you do any color enhancing there? I mean, they're very rusty, very old looking, goopy drips on them and things like that.
The only changes I made were just in the color,
Saturation.
and contrast, light and dark. Oh, and I call it vowel movement because they're labeled in order of the processing of waste by the Scandinavian vowels, just as a tie-in to local fascination with Scandinavian history and Nordic settler roots here in the area.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool, sir. I enjoy all of your work. So just to kind of give people a progression. So you walk in, you've got your vowel movement on one wall. You have the industrial, smaller paintings of Duluth and Superior as you're coming into the building. And then when you get into the actual studio part, you have these wonderful canvases. I mean, all of them are different sizes and things like that. Some of them are so huge, I don't even know how you fit them in your car. And it's absolutely fabulous. How long does it actually take you to do one of these larger pieces?
Well, it's a little hard to quantify sometimes. My wife kind of makes fun of me because I can juggle so many projects at once. She likes to do one thing and finish it and move on to the next. I might have a number of different artworks going on at the same time, and I revisit them over the course of several months, and as the mood strikes, like, oh, I'll work on this part, or oh, I'll work on this one. But I would say, a couple weeks to a month for a big painting.
Okay.
With pretty regular work.
Yeah, fabulous. So what, in these paintings, most of them are paintings, however, I'm, getting little glimpses of metal work, and, one's got a little wood spear on it and things like that, so it's very mixed medium then.
Right. Well, it's similar to I figure I like to put different things together and see what kind of conflicts or bridges they can build between them. So with the political, with the nature and the technology, natural images and 3D objects with the flat painting. Lots of other things I'd like to explore. This is it's interesting seeing all this stuff displayed together because it's generally in different boxes or different parts of the garage or something.
Oh, okay.
And so you can see the different experiments that I've tried, like the more abstract ones behind you were a series where I thought, well, why am I doing cultural appropriation of all of these, found out Reese's wrappers or Japanese cough drops or whatever? Why not? I've got all my old paintings. I could use them as resources to sample and create new works. And music is another interest of mine, and I like that sampling and hip hop use of little pieces, snippets of other works to reinterpret them. And so those pieces are blow-up images of parts of some of the other paintings, which makes it kind of a fun puzzle. It's kind of a Where's Waldo? Like, oh, where's that little blue triangle from? And it's from this one up here, part of a seascape.
And actually, the little puzzle pieces aren't done on the regular square canvas. You've got one that's a triangle and another one that's what would they call that? An obtuse?
Parallelogram, trapezoid, rhomboid.
Something.
Yeah, well, it's a couple of things that at the time I did those when I was at the university, and they had a great wood shop, so I could cut all these canvas wood angles and stretch the canvas. And as part of the experimentation, like why am I doing things the way that I do them? Learning more about the process, thinking about are there other ways that I can do it? What would that symbolize? So instead of just doing a default square rectangular canvas, I thought, well, I'll try some shaped ones. Some of my favorite works from the Smithsonian were like Frank Stella. He did big, weird geometric snail shapes and other things that really caught my eye. And so that was an experiment with that. Yeah.
All right, very cool. And now, Robert, you had mentioned that you did some teaching way back when. So are you a professor? Do I have to call you Professor Adams?
Well, instructor.
Instructor? Okay.
But yeah, before we moved to Duluth, I was teaching at Lane Community College in Eugene, Oregon. And so that was a great way to interact with artists and stay active and get more ideas. And yeah, I may be returning to that. So we're moving, part of the inspiration for these shows here at CF Design and at Duluth Coffee Company was to have kind of a final show, farewell, whatever. But before we moving to Florida, my wife's going to be a professor down there, and I'm talking to the art department about teaching some classes there as well. It's I just did a workshop class in cartooning for the Art Institute here, so that was kind of fun to revisit teaching and to see how exciting it is for people who can create these amazing works, but maybe they've never had an art class, or they never took it seriously, or gave themselves credit for their skill, and to give them an excuse to create something, to unearth this skill and power is really really cool.
Very cool. Robert, I didn't know that about you. Very awesome. And now, you had mentioned that you're more of a self-taught artist, and then you went to graduate school for art later on in your life. How did that spark of art kind of come about? I mean, was it a book that you got? Was it just living near the Smithsonian museums?
I think part of part of it was rebelling against my dad, right?
Oh.
I mean, my family's been big on science and that kind of more straight-laced thing. And after college with my biology degree, my dad said, "Hey," I went back home. I was a boomerang kid for a while, lazing around. And he's like, "Go to one of your alumni gatherings and make some connections, get a job." And so I went to an alumni gathering in Georgetown, and it happened to be at a graphic design firm, and they had all these amazing folk art pieces, primarily by Howard Finster, who's from Georgia, and he's done album covers for REM and Talking Heads and other stuff. And I was like, wow, these are really brilliant, and this guy didn't have any arts education, and he's got things to say, and why don't I try that? And so I, kind of being directionless at the time, I started to use those things that I had collected, the interesting objects from my stream cleaning job, and make my own stuff out of them.
Yeah, and then it sounds kind of like it just snowballed from there.
Yeah, so snowball of trash.
Oh, but you turned it into amazing art. And now, Rob, who actually helped you put these shows together? A lot of people say, the independent artist can do it on their own, but that's not really the case. I mean, you need friends, or you need a marketing strategist or whatnot.
Sure. I work at the Duluth Public Library, and got to know one of our patrons there, Jim Goodman, who works at his company Boost Advising, which helps different companies do marketing and get the word out. And first he invited me, he's like, "Hey, as a librarian, do you want to join a book club?" And so I wasn't in a book club, so that's been fun. And then I learned about his other work, and he's like, I figured he might be able to help with the final art show here. So he suggested some different options for showing work around Duluth, and the downtown Duluth art walk seemed to be a good fit. So that's why he helped me put up. He's like a gymnast on top of a 12-foot ladder here, helping me hang these pieces. It's amazing. So we've had this show up for the April Art Walk, and then put up the one at Duluth Coffee Company for the May Art Walk. And the Joseph Nice Gallery has been a big help, because Joseph there gave me advice about the art scene here, and apparently they were instrumental in putting together the Art Walk last year. And then Cheryl Fosdick, who runs CF Design, she's awesome to share her space with me, and Eric Faust over at Duluth Coffee Company for being open to local art and all that. So, yeah, It takes a village to put up an art show.
Yeah. Well, it takes a village to do anything, really. I mean, there's no such thing as the complete independent artist.
Yeah,
You need friends.
that's
Is what I'm saying.
like, is that what Jim Croce said? No.
I don't know who said it, but they're wrong.
All right.
And Robert, if somebody's interested in maybe commissioning a piece or seeing what you have in your collection, how can they do that? Do you have a website or an Instagram page, anything like that?
I do. I have a website, robatoms.com, play on words, ROBATOMS.com, and you can contact me through there, or also robatoms@gmail. And yeah, I do also have occasionally post some things to Instagram. And also I just started you're talking about the shark piece here with the submarine. I started a a blog with a friend of mine. I've been fascinated by dream imagery for years, and we started a dream blog. It's called Rapid Eye Memoirs at Blogspot. And so for people who can, post their dreams or look for interpretation, or we post about our dreams, and in particular lucid dreams I'm fascinated by, like having, what does it mean for consciousness that you can be in these surreal environments but think that it's real, and some of the techniques that you can use to have conscious dreams also apply to being more mindful in your waking life. So it's really fascinating to me. But I don't usually use dream images directly in my work, but occasionally I've been told like maybe the connection with the subconscious helps to make connections between the different objects and images that I use. So for instance, with the submarine and the shark, I had the urge to put those tin can lids in there from track recycling. And somebody at a show once said, "Oh, tin cans, the sailors on the submarine, it's like they're trapped in a tin can, like sardines." And I see what you were doing there, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, okay, maybe I did. I didn't, but not necessarily consciously. So.
Yeah, and art is open to interpretation. Even to kind of dive into music a little bit here, you and I, we played in a band together. Well, actually, twice now we've played in a band together, and it's absolutely fun. But I mean, art is open to interpretation, not just paintings. I mean, the only thing that's pretty straightforward is photography. At times it can be, but even music is open to interpretation as well. It's really kind of what different people hear in lyrics and a guitar solo and things like that. So,
yeah, it's something you can dance to something, or you can listen to, analyze the lyrics in detail, or think about the different musical history that the artists are referencing or playing off of. It's you can definitely dig in as deep as you're willing to go.
Yeah. And now, Rob, when we had talked, we were both in Typical Prototype, which is a Duluth No Doubt cover band here, and we were just talking about different musical influences and things like that. And you play trumpet, except you had taken trumpet in a different manner. You learned Ozzy Osbourne covers and things like that on your trumpet, which makes you a very versatile trumpet player. It's amazing. And then we also played in a homegrown pep band together as well this year. Can we touch on your kind of musical career a little bit?
I played trumpet in junior high school and high school, and for pep bands we would do things of the 80s, like Rocky and Eye of the Tiger. But at the time I was into heavy metal, and I wanted to play Ozzy, but my dad wouldn't let me have a guitar because he thought that was too countercultural, or
too
downhill slide.
Too rock and roll.
Right, just dangerous. And but so I would end up transcribing my favorite metal songs like Ozzy into trumpet parts and playing those. And which is funny because we ended up playing Crazy Train for the pep band at Homegrown, which is awesome.
Did that bring you back to your high school days?
Totally. Yeah. It's a fun flashback.
Yeah.
To the good parts of high school.
Good. Excellent. And now, have you played trumpet kind of throughout the years, or did you kind of set it down for a while and pick it back up again?
Set it down for over 20 years or so. I didn't even think about it. I applied. Some friends of mine urged me to apply to the Rock and Roll Kamikaze, the yearly event here, and so I just put in my name, figuring I would, as a singer or tambourine player or something. When I lived in Seattle for a number of years, I was singing in a band with some friends there, so I just figured that, I like to sing, whatever. Karaoke's been my major outlet for the past number of years, but randomly someone asked me in the band if I could play trumpet, and I was like, well, I could try, and so I still remembered how. It's amazing muscle memory or something. I'm really excited to keep that going, see what kind of bands might need trumpets or other things in Jacksonville.
All right.
Or back up here, because we plan to come up in the summers. And,
Excellent. Excellent.
Take advantage of the awesomeness up here in the North Woods.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I will miss you, even in the winter time. Even though I know you'll come back up here in the summer. So you've got a website, if people want to check out your artwork there. And actually, you just sold one of these pieces as well.
Yeah, I did. So that's awesome. Like you said, it's hard to especially these pieces that I've held on to over the years. They've grown on me, or I have a personal attachment or something. So it's hard to let them go. But when I talk to the person and they're like, "Oh, I just love this piece because of this and this," then I know that it's going to a good home and it's going to be valued, and it probably won't end up in a Goodwill bin someday. But if it does, art should be about the creation process, not necessarily just documenting all the old past work or something. But they'll be up through June if people want to come in anytime during the open hours of the CF Design, which is Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., or just down the street at Duluth Coffee Company in the back hall. I have 3 paintings up there, viewable during their open hours as well.
Excellent, excellent. And Robert, are you looking at getting some of your artwork out in Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Hoping to?
The idea of putting the show up was to figure out what my next step would be artistically, and what I should do with this old art, and whether I should ship it. And what I've done is kind of bring it across the country from Seattle to, as the I create new stuff, and I bring some of it along, and from Seattle to Oregon and Minnesota, and then it just gives me stuff that's kind of unique looking and that people seem to like to show, and I can put it up as soon as I get to a new city and then start working on new stuff. And so I wasn't sure if I would bring some to Jacksonville, but now I think I will, unless everyone in Duluth wants to keep all these paintings, then I'll make new ones. But otherwise, I'll have stuff ready to kickstart my art career down there.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, Robert, I wish you the best of luck down in Jacksonville, and I look forward to your return next summer.
Right, thank you.
Of course. And now your website again is?
robatoms.com, ROBATOMS. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, Robert, thank you so much for taking time out of this absolutely gorgeous Saturday to have me track you down to CF Design so we can sit amongst your artwork and chat. So thank you so much. And if anyone is interested in seeing what Robert has in store, you can actually see one of his preview art in the Duluth Reader, in this week's Duluth Reader, actually. And it does have the hours for CF Design there as well.
And Duluth Coffee.
And Duluth Coffee Company.